Welcome to Breaking the Silence, and this is In Conversation With. Now, In Conversation With is exactly that. It's a conversation where the guest and I talk about a variety of subjects related to non-human intelligence. And that means a lot of things besides flying saucers and aliens. It means near-death experiences and other paranormal events, because as we're finding, as I've been finding, as many have been finding, they're all connected together and related. So I want to welcome Mike Clelland back on the show. And this will be the first time you've been recorded. The last time we did you was a while ago, and it was a live stream.
Mm-hmm.
And although people do watch them, they watch these a lot more. So welcome back, Mike.
Oh, thank you. It's my honor.
You have quite a following, too. It's amazing. A lot of people have asked,
Oh,
when are you going to have him
good.
back? They wanted me to bring you back. So here you are. And then we have a pretty big audience. We're up to about 20,000
Ooh,
subscribers now, but
wow.
we have close to 2 million views overall. So even though people aren't subscribing, there's a lot more people watching the channel than when we started back when we had you on. We were just kind of starting off. So it might be good to start by refreshing our larger audience about yourself, about your own experience, as you see fit.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I've been at this, meaning sort of talking about my own direct experiences since, like in a real meaningful way, around 2009. And it all began, I guess in my youth, I had a lot of, well, not a lot, but enough experiences that sure seemed to imply the UFO mystery had sort of intersected with my life. I had missing time before there was any such term, missing time, and then when I was 12 years old when that happened, and when I was 30, I had what felt like a close-up sighting of gray beings outside my bedroom window, and that one felt like things were distorted as far as my ability to perceive, if that makes sense. And I dismissed it as a dream. And now I was 30, I'm 63 now, so that's over half my life ago. I sure feel that something took place that night, something powerful. And I'm not sure what we talked about on the other shows and such. And since then, I have been kind of known in this field as the owl guy. I've been doing research on owls, and that's been so I had a powerful experience in 2006 where I saw owls while camping with a friend, and it seemed to intersect with the UFO thing. There was no UFOs in the sightings, the owl sightings, but it put me on this track where I started looking into my own UFO experiences because of the owl sighting. And my life starting around 2006 just came unhinged, and I was confronted with so many synchronicities, like powerful, mind-blowing synchronicities. And this was right as I was trying to explore my own experiences as well as this owl mystery. And somewhere in there around 2009, I started a blog. And very early on in the blog, my blog was initially just going to be about synchronicities. I've had a lot of them, and they make great blog posts, right? So they're usually pretty short. And so I figured, like, I'm just going to put out a blog and I'll just share my synchronicities.
Is that on WordPress?
It's on Blogspot. Excuse me, Blogger.
Blogspot. Okay.
Excuse me, Blogger. Blogspot and Blogger are the same thing.
Right.
But
right.
And that's still there. I've since got a Substack page. I don't put much on it, and I realized I don't put anything on the old blog anymore. And it's kind of, some of the links are kind of dead, and there's kind of tough to upload and kind of update some of the things. And not many people are visiting there. I do have a podcast that I'm doing about one a month now, and sometimes I can't even keep up with that. And that's mostly just so I can talk to people. I enjoy the conversations I can have, and I like talking to people who aren't necessarily at the forefront of the research community, though I do certainly talk to folks like that on the show. But there's a lot of stories that don't get told, and I like reaching out to those folks. But so what happened was I started talking about my UFO experiences, sort of like I didn't want to go there, but it felt like reality forced me to talk about my UFO memories on the blog. And then it felt
Funny
like
thing.
the synchronicities accelerated, and then I started posting owl stories, and then people started sending me their owl stories, and I put up a little thing that says, I want to hear your owl stories. And I say this all the time. I'll say it here. I want to hear your owl stories. If you got a weird owl story, send it to me. I'm easy to find. On my site, right at the top of the site, it says contact Mike. It's easy to do. And if you can't remember my name, you can type in UFOs, owls, and I'm the very first thing that comes up.
Oh yeah.
And about the next 50 things underneath that. So if anyone anywhere in the world has had an experience with a UFO and an owl, they are going to find me in about 2 mouse clicks. And I have been receiving stories.
You were besieged. You were literally besieged when you first started this.
Well, it comes in ebbs and flows a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
at the minimum 2 a day. And then sometimes a lot more. And which I know other people get hit with more than that, but people reaching out to me, telling me their stories, about 2 a day is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been going on for about 16 years. And some days it's a lot higher, 10, 6, 10 stories a day. And I think a lot of that, honestly, I think if there's a YouTube video that goes into circulation, I get so many more stories, and I don't know how to keep track of that, but that's my sense. And then those stories, I don't want those to sit and be hidden in a file cabinet. I want to talk about those stories. I want to share those stories. And so I've been putting out books, and I've got 4 books out now on owls and their connection to the paranormal, whether that be directly to UFOs. Well, actually, the 4 books I have now are pretty much all connected to the UFO thing. Mm-hmm. And but it's certainly much more than that. And so I might end up repeating some of the things we talked about before. But so
it was 2 years ago.
Oh, was it that long ago?
Yeah, it's been. Yeah, don't
wow,
even go there.
Good
don't
grief.
Even go there.
It felt like 2 hours. Yeah, it feels like 2 weeks ago. Okay, so
yeah, I know. It's true. But I'll be able to put up images of your books and links to them and all that stuff as we're talking along here, so people can find you easily. A lot of people don't know how to use a search engine, I found, which is kind of frustrating. But
wow.
They just need help, so we help them because they want to know about this stuff. So you don't want.
Well, I got up. Yeah, so I can.
With that.
I'll set with my links. I'll set you up with my links before we say goodbye here. So
yeah. I myself, owls followed me around all my life, and when I was a kid, I wasn't connecting the UFOs I saw as a kid with owls. I just knew I was fascinated with owls, and there was something there between the owls and me. I could never put my finger on it. I'll never forget being at a museum, natural history type of museum, and they had live animals in there, and they had a cage, and it was a California great owl, horned owl, and it had its back to me, and it just turned its head around, looked right at me, and I remember being sort of startled by it. And then there was one that used to sit in my window in San Francisco and look in at me. And then I had them follow me, and screech owls follow me and screech when I'd be walking my dogs. And up till recent, these big trees out here on Channel Islands is full of great horned owls at night, and they're all hooting away. Sometimes I hoot back at them, and they hoot back at me, and so they've always fascinated me, and they've been always around me. And I don't know if it's just coincidence or they are part of the UFO story or not. But being that I have these experiences, it's possible.
Oh, what you just said as far as an owl looking in your window. Oh man, that is so consistent in the reports I get. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's possible that owls can land on a windowsill and look in, but
in San Francisco,
a big urban place, that's rare. Yeah. Right. So it might be
by the beach, 47th Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so it's tough, like I'm open to, like, I got to be really careful and not make claims I can't back up. But what I can say with great authority is that your story, just what you just shared there, sounds so consistent. It is so consistent with what people reach out to me when they tell me their experiences. Yeah. And a lot of people, and then you talk to other people, say, I've never seen owls ever. My brother says he's never seen an owl. And it's like,
Wow.
like I see them all the time. He lives in a place with big trees and forests, and they're there, but wow. So
Yeah, we have a lot of them. They're predominantly California great horned owls, and they're beautiful.
yeah, they're a big owl, and I'm living up in the Seattle area, and we get a lot of barred owls and a lot of great horned owls, and occasionally a great gray owl. When I've seen great, I actually used to see great gray owls in Wyoming when I lived there, and they're particularly impressive. They have a different feel altogether. They're significantly larger than the great horned owls.
Wow, bigger.
Yeah,
That's something. I didn't know they got bigger than the great horned owl. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I it's been a while, but I did watch that film, The Fifth Kind. Did you see it?
The fourth kind, yeah,
The
yeah.
fourth is it the fourth kind? I
The
thought okay,
fourth
it's
kind
the
came
fourth
out in
kind.
2009. Yeah, people reference that
Yeah.
all the time. I had to write about that. So the fourth kind. In the fourth kind, they use owls as a sort of plot point to imply
Hmm.
that it's the screen memory of a gray alien, and it takes now the fourth kind. Like at the beginning, I haven't seen it in a long time, but it kind of says based on true story with actual video, from the actual events, and that's not true. That movie is
No, it's
totally
not.
that's got like a William Castle kind of promotional
Hmm.
playfulness to it, um, and so it's I'm all for like B movies. That was
Yeah, I
not like
thought it
it.
was well done. I mean,
Yeah.
I watched it a second time. I liked it a lot more.
Oh, how interesting. Okay, because I should, I like the actors that are in it,
Yeah.
but it was so the owl as a screen memory in 2009. I would argue that the scriptwriters simply referenced Whitley Strieber's Communion, which came out in 1987.
87, that's correct.
Yeah. So in that book he talks about having a screen memory of an owl. Well, actually, he says he had. So the event took place where Whitley Strieber describes, for what might have been really the first time in such a big way. That book was a big national and international bestseller
Yeah,
in
it
ways that
was.
I don't think a UFO book has come close. Whatever Lou Elizondo, I don't think his book sold nearly as much as Communion. I
Oh,
might be
no.
wrong.
No,
So,
no. He sold 10 million books in the first year it was out.
yeah, and
And
in
that's
that book,
because the people recognized the cover. That's what drew them to it.
yeah, I saw that when I saw the cover. This is so funny. I was living in New York City, and I
Oh,
found out recently I wasn't living that far from Whitley at the time, so I was just a few blocks away from him. I was living in Greenwich Village, and he was living in Bleecker and Lafayette, and so what else? I just lost my train of thought there. Trying to think of his. Uh, that cover was everywhere. That cover was everywhere, and in every bookstore and every grocery store, and like everyone had it in their back pocket. So that book was around, and I didn't read it initially. I didn't read it until 91 or 2. So it was about
hmm.
4 years after the book came out before I finally read it. And I remember looking at the cover, and I had this distinct feeling, because I'm a professional illustrator, or I was
And
working in
you
New York
sure
City.
are.
I was
Yeah.
working in New York City doing professional illustrations, and I lived in a nice apartment too at that point. And I remember seeing that cover, and I went, "That's not quite right. It's close, but it's not quite right." And I never did went to the next step. Like, why the hell would I have that thought of all the thoughts
Yeah.
to have?
Mm.
Like, I kind of wanted to go in there with a pencil and kind of just go, okay, let's just clean up that little corner there, that little corner there, and smooth this out here. That's better. And
Yeah.
it wasn't much, but it was just enough that my total initial reaction was, it's not quite right. And you know what? They had that great big poster in the subways. I think that was more when the movie came out. But
Yeah, that poor film.
oh yeah, yeah. So I had some problems with that film, but
Oh God, yeah. Well, the main one was Christopher Walken. The second one was the director, Philippe Moreau. He just,
well, it's too bad because
I don't.
I mean, it seems like it's still like that. It's ready for a remake in the sense that,
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, all the director had to do was read the book and
yeah,
make the book into a film, and it would have been a great film.
yeah.
So and not put his spin on it. So, and
The,
Chris
the,
was, I mean, I've worked with Christopher Walken uh, for a long time on a film in his early career, and he's a good actor, and he can be very small, very refined. He'll do anything he's directed to do. He was so out of control in that film, so over the top, and that had to be the director.
and Whitley, I mean, I know Whitley pretty well. He's
Me too.
very reserved
Hmm.
and very centered and very almost like a college professor. I've always had that kind of way of
He's got a good sense of humor, though.
got a very good sense of humor,
It's
but
very sardonic.
yeah, but Christopher Walken is kind of a method actor, kind of unleashed in a way. Like if
Yeah,
he's not, yeah, I remember he was a little too big. He was kind of, he, yeah, a big, big
Kelsey
personality.
Grammer.
Yeah, yeah.
Kelsey Grammer would have been my pick.
Oh, I'm not sure who that is.
Frasier, the TV show
Mm,
Frasier. Kelsey Grammer. Yeah,
of course, yeah.
yeah. He's got the same feeling that Whitley has, even off camera.
Hmm.
So I always thought that Kelsey would do a good job. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so you were talking about the communion, and it's just it's typical that that our conversation would lead to that. We both know Whitley. We both know him a long time. And we're both influenced by the book, and the book cover is very. If you kind of squint your eyes and blur them, it's like a big owl looking at you. And uh,
Well,
you know, I've been doing this stuff for years since I first met Whitley in '92 or '3, and we became good friends. But I knew all the other people too, Roger Lear and all the rest. And I have been involved in this since then, in working with people who have these experiences, and even more so since the advent of this program, Breaking the Silence. And you hear it over and 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 over again about his book and how it affected their lives, uh, and made them realize that they had some part in all this.
and what you also hear over and over again is people on the other side of the grocery store, and they see it on the little paperback rack, and their their heart drops. They're so shaken by this imagery that and oftentimes they don't know why. Like,
Hmm.
why is this imagery touching me at such a visceral level?
They
And
don't
that,
remember.
yeah, I mean, the mystery is so impenetrable at times because so much of it is hidden away in a kind of amnesia, and then when the amnesia does break, it often emerges uh, in a sloppy way, where things will be remembered in little flashes or out of sequence and such. So it's a very difficult thing to try to research, and I think so. I've been involved, not involved. Like I have friends that work for MUFON, and I've spoken at MUFON events and
Hmm.
and such like that. And I think MUFON as an organization, and this is just my opinion as an outsider, is poorly suited to take on the UFO contact experience because the organization is so scientifically based in one level that the UFO contact experience or abduction experience, whatever term you want to use, the direct experience, the interaction experience is so difficult to 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 truly address. Do you know David Marler?
No, I don't.
David Marler runs an outfit out of, I think it's out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he basically has a library and a research center, and it's a remarkable. I have never been there directly. I know him pretty well. We've talked to plenty of times at events, at conferences, and so he's archiving and a lot of data, a lot of newspaper sources and books, and so he's in a lot of archived data. So, but he worked for MUFON for a while. I don't think has a close relationship with MUFON anymore. And
Hmm.
he said something really just plain and just, he said, I was doing abduction research and I had to stop. And I said, what? Well, like, and he said, and then I just went back to just, UFO sighting reports. And I said, why did, and that, as someone who feels like I've had the direct experience, I was like, kind of like, you got to tell me, why did you stop? And he said, it just took too much time. And I knew exactly what he meant, right? So you sit down with a UFO witness
Yeah.
And you can wrap that up in about a half hour. You can fill out the form, and they saw a little light in the sky and it passed over their house, and you can give you the time and the date and the direction it was traveling, and then you're done. And then you talk to the UFO experiencer, and you sit down and you sit with them for 6 hours, and you only got about 5% of it. And that's been my strong sense. So it is not an easy thing to research.
No, no, it's very tiring too. Yeah, this person you're talking about, is he the one that has the archive? It's at a school.
I don't know if it's at a
It's like a
school.
museum. You can walk into it, and there's all this stuff that was donated by this one researcher and collector. It was on the
Oh,
news a while ago.
oh no, no, no. I think he's got his stuff. He's certainly got plenty of stuff that was donated, and way
Right,
more than one person. And
right.
it is at a it's in an like a it's not a museum. He
Hmm.
would never call it a museum, I don't think, though he has plenty of like sort of, worthwhile artifacts and things like that. I think he has the original negative in print of the Los Angeles event that took place during World War II, with all the spotlights on the craft in the
Wow, the
sky.
original negative,
Yeah,
because it's been said that that's been doctored and messed with, and it would be really something to see the direct negative.
it,
Uh,
David Marler's the source for that. He's done a lot
wow.
of direct, like good, strong research on that event itself. Yeah, I watched a presentation he gave on that. That was riveting, just on that particular event alone, and the misinformation, just the way newspapers get some things wrong and then following up with the available information.
And some movies too, because 1941 was originally. I got the feeling that you know Spielberg was going to do a film about that, and he was, and then it became the silly comedy with John Belushi in it, and um, I often question why that happened. I would like to have seen a film about that, and no one's ever done it. Um,
Yeah, that would be
it'd be
really
a
interesting.
shame.
Yeah,
And with the new film that's coming out of his, I have a lot of reservations about that film.
it's
In light of
interesting.
him, go
It's
ahead.
all I've seen is the trailer,
Yeah, it made
and
me
wow,
feel
there's
very
not much I can glean from the trailer.
no, but it was. I get the same thing from everyone who is an experiencer. They say it seems dark and sinister. Um, Most of the people that I've worked with, and I would say about 80% of them, yes, this experience started off being pretty terrifying, unsettling, and maybe at the time they wished it would never happen or would just go away. But now that they're older, a lot of them in their late 60s and 70s, even 80s, they wouldn't go back for anything because it's evolved to a level where they feel that the experience has raised their consciousness, made them smarter, made them more aware, and they don't feel a threat from the visitors at all. They feel um, that this is some sort of project we're working together on and have been for a very, very long time. They all say the same thing. We're much more afraid of human beings.
And I'm like, I know what I want the phenomena to be, right? I know what I would. Wouldn't that be great if it was like all love and light? And so I've tried to be very, very balanced in the way I present the information. Here's what I can say. So I'm not looking at the full totality of the UFO mystery,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
it encompasses so much. It encompasses government conspiracies. It
Yep.
it disclosure, and then
Lots of
and then
lying.
and then there's, yeah. So but what I'm talking, the people who are reaching out to me
Mm-hmm.
and that occupy all my time, is this little narrow sliver within the big wide spectrum, and that little narrow sliver is people who have had UFO and owl experiences co-joined. And I will tell you, within that little narrow sliver is such a resonance of spirituality, of of emotional transformation, of hopefulness,
Mm-hmm.
and then also, it's really difficult to give a number to this, but healing. People have healing abilities, all connected in this little thin thing with the owls. And I may have said this to you before, but I'll say it again. You're familiar with Reiki healing, right?
Oh, sure. Mary's a Reiki
Right.
practitioner. She's
That
not
doesn't.
Yeah, she took a whole course and has her certificate and the whole thing. So yeah, and it
So
does work.
I'm all for. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And it works remotely. You have a Reiki therapist on the you on the phone, and they say, "Well, I'm gonna like, oh, your back's sore. Here, let me work on you tonight, and tell me how you feel tomorrow morning." And then they're on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast, and I
hmm
wake up the next morning, I'm like, well, that's like remarkable. So here's back to the research of the people I talk with. The majority are owl and UFO experiencers. Of that pool, with owls and UFOs somehow co-joined, I would cautiously argue that 50% of the people that reach out to me are doing Reiki therapy. And
huh?
if
I
I'm
did
not,
not
it's
know
and if they're,
that.
I would love to
Excuse me.
crunch the numbers in a more thoughtful way. I'm only one person, and like, how do I sift through, a couple thousand? I mean, I wish I had made a spreadsheet and started one back in like 2009, but I didn't, and so I'm doing this anecdotally. But if it's not directly Reiki therapy, they're doing some sort of energy work. They're doing some sort of healing work, whether it be directly as a nurse or as a they're
Sorry.
doing Reiki. They're doing work either directly as a nurse, as I said, and then or a therapist, role of a therapist. I talked to one guy and I said, "Do you ever do any healing work?" And he had a really amazing owl story. And he's like, "What are you talking about? Healing work?" And I'm like, "I don't even know what you mean." And I said, "Well, like, do you have like basically?" I said, "Do you have any like magical healing abilities where you can?" And he said, "Well, when my wife was going through chemotherapy, I could hold my hands over her body and alleviate her pain from the chemotherapy." And I was like, "Okay, that
Yeah.
that qualifies." Yeah.
Did he claim they got hot?
I think he actually said I can produce a form of heat with my
Yeah,
hands.
that's quite common.
Yeah.
And to go back to your talking about someone can be on the East Coast, someone's on the West Coast. In light of all the research that's been done in science about quantum entanglement, I think that explains it. At least it does for me.
Yeah. I'm totally on board with uh let me just think for a second. It was Edgar Mitchell was on the
Yep.
moon, walking on the
hmm
moon, and
hmm
he had planned ahead. I think he had already been doing some psychical research, and he had a very simple test that he snuck in, and he had a person on. I'm doing this off the cuff, and I'm probably getting some of this wrong. He had a person at mission control that would ask him a series of questions, and he would answer the questions, and they it was set up essentially like. What do they call the little cards that have the wavy thing and the star and the
Oh,
square?
the ESP cards. That's what we
Yeah,
call them.
yeah, ESP cards. So they
Are you
basically
good?
set up a very simple ESP card thing, but they wanted to get the answers. They wanted to know if it the psychic resonance was faster than the speed of light, because it took about a half a second that's why when you hear the transmissions from the people at mission control and then the people on the moon, there's a pause. There's about a one
Sure.
second pause where it's got about a half second to get there, and then they answer the question. There's a half second back. So they wanted to see if they could beat that half second, if they could do it instantly. I can't remember what the exact experiment was, but it didn't take long to do, and they did it under the radar. They snuck it in there and did it without telling one at mission control or without telling anyone else on the crew. So it was Edgar Mitchell kind of sneaking that in there. And if I remember correctly, it they had, I don't want to say they proved anything, but they had good evidence that the psychic abilities were faster than the speed of light. So it basically instantaneously entanglement, where a flashlight is not instantaneous. That light takes time for it to travel out of the front of
Of
the
course.
flashlight. But the psychic waves, so that implies, like, I don't know, like, why I could be on I could be in a different galaxy and still get a Reiki healing from someone else.
hmm
So
hmm the speed of light is incredibly slow. Most of the population thinks that's the fastest speed there is, but I think that with quantum entanglement, it has nothing to do with speed
yeah,
at all. It just has to do with it's always now.
Yeah, and I can. Oh yeah, we're all, there's only one. And that's something that
Yeah.
I just wrote down. You talked about NDEs at the beginning. Um, that's
Hmm.
something that shows up is in the. You know what I do is that there's these podcasts out now that are
Hmm.
just near death experiencers telling their stories, and I am so. I explained this to someone one time, and she listens to them too, and she interrupted me before I got done saying things. She said, "Yeah, I don't need to go to church anymore now that I listen to near death experiencer stories."
Huh.
Because they're so hopeful. You know, this like basically the realm beyond this realm is a realm of, I mean, basically they're describing heaven in a way, and timeless realm full of universal love and
Hmm.
acceptance and connection, and so and but within the UFO contact experience, people tell stories of, like I was on board the UFO, but time didn't work the same way it does here. Time was different, and that's tough for me to wrap my mind around. In a I can entertain the idea, but I truly don't know what it means. And but so that's both within the NDE and
Hmm.
within the UFO contact experience. Both experiencers of those two divergent phenomena tell of a absolute realm, a realm of timelessness, where time just doesn't work in the same way.
Well, when I've been in the presence of craft, and I'm thinking of one time in particular, and I'll keep it short because I want to hear about your stuff. But I was with my friend. He's a Bill Nye, Sagan, Neil Tyson type of guy, and we're having an astronomy party. We're in the middle of nowhere, and we're doing long-term time exposures because this was before we had um, digital cameras. So we used off-axis guiding to track a little star, but the main scope was on the Orion Nebula or the Dumbbell Nebula or something like that. We did these long exposures on film that took maybe 30, 40 minutes sometimes. Um, and there was a bright light shining in my eye, and I got annoyed. I stopped the exposure because I was going to chew out Mark. He's the only other person there. And why are you doing that? And I'm standing there motionless, and he's looking at this rather large, I like, it was a sphere. I'm not going to call it an orb. It was too big to be an orb, that was watching us, and it was shining a light at us. Um, there's a lot more to the story, but the bottom line is during that moment, it was a vacuum. There was no sound at
Mm-hmm.
all. Everything was literally standing still. There wasn't a branch moving, anything, just us. And he was frozen. And I ran over to it, and I hear him say, "Don't do that. You don't know what it can do to you." And he doesn't remember any of it, which is pretty creepy because he did initially when we got back the next day. He told my wife all about it. 2 weeks later, he had no memory at all. But it was, it was as though time stood still. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's not
Oh,
the
and
only,
I've had that experience too.
yeah,
That
it's not
weird
the only
eerie
time you've
silence.
experienced. Yeah, I think somehow time, or what we think of a time, is we're outside of it somehow. It is hard to get your head wrapped around. It is.
Yeah. Um, with that experience I told earlier, where I said I saw beings out my window, I was
Yeah. What
30.
about that? Yeah.
I may have told this to you in the story. I'll tell it right now. So
Long time ago. Yeah. It
I
would be
was
good for
30.
people to.
I was 30, and that was half my life ago. And I was at my, I was living in a small cabin. Well, it wasn't really a cabin, a small house in rural Maine. I was alone in the house at the time. And I woke up in the middle of the night because a bright light was shining in the window. And I kind of sat up on my elbow. And the way the window was, the bed was pushed right up against the wall, and the headboard, and just above the headboard was the window out the side there. And it was kind of the edge of the driveway, but there was a garden out there. It was actually pretty and such like that. This is wintertime, so there was nothing to see there. But this bright light was pouring in, and I sat up, and there were five gray beings. I've got a good illustration of this. I can send it to you.
Yeah, you sure do. I love those.
Yeah, and so five beings were walking towards the house, and and I was the only one in the house, and they looked like, I mean, whatever. They were the skinny beings with the big bald heads and the big black eyes and the tight little spacesuits on, and I had zero emotion. It felt like somebody else had a dial, and then on one of the dials was marked emotion, and it was just turned right to zero. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel astonishment. I didn't feel anything. And I can't, so this whole thing happened pretty quick. And I heard a voice in my head. And if I play it out, that voice in a way is my voice. Like if I really like what was that voice? It was basically, it felt like a daydream thought. And it was very clearly said, "Oh yes, they're here. Now is the time to put your head on the pillow and shut down." And I put my head on the pillow and shut down. I should have done exactly the opposite. I should have panicked. I should have gotten up and locked the door and gotten a baseball bat or a knife from the kitchen and tried to defend myself. I did nothing. I just let go completely. And then, and now there's so much to this story. That's it. That's my memory.
Right.
Woke up, bright light, put my head on the pillow, shut down. And the next morning, I'd never even bothered to go out and to see if there were footprints in the snow because I just dismissed it all as a dream. A couple things. I had Bud Hopkins' book, Intruders, I had been reading.
Oh, yeah.
Before going to bed that night. And the book hadn't been out very long. That would have been 92. I think that book came out right around the same time as Communion. So it would have been out.
But Debbie Cobble, who's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. And I have a good friend of mine too. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She's wonderful.
She is her. Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. And so that book, and I just said, oh God, I must have fallen asleep and just filled my thoughts with creepy images of beings like that. And then that just emerged as a dream. And I always knew that wasn't quite right. And then I did a drawing of it for my blog in probably around 2008 or so. I think I did it before that. I think I just knew I had to draw this. And this was early on in using, for me, using Photoshop. But what I did is I did a pen drawing, pen and ink, and then I cleaned it up and added tone and colorized it. It's black and white, but I put the tone in with Photoshop. And the emotional charge, like I know just what it means to sit down and do a drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But the emotional charge drawing that had, doing the actual act of drawing that was just filled with such an emotional resonance and kind of just this gritting my teeth kind of urgency and this a weird thing. So I knew full well, before doing the drawing that I had one chance to do this drawing because I knew what would happen would be that the drawing would become my memory. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. No, it does make sense.
So
I've done so much drawing on the subject. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I kind of, my sense was that if I do the drawing, then after I do the drawing, and I'm doing it right now, I picture it in my mind, I'm picturing not the event, but the drawing. But I do feel like I captured it as best as I could. Here's one little detail that I couldn't catch. In the beings were kind of all walking side by side, and I drew them walking initially, and it didn't work at all. It looked ridiculous. It looked like they were like doing the can on stage. It looked like they were dancing, and it didn't work. So I made them all standing in a row, and I make a point to say that that's not actually what they weren't standing in a row. They were actually walking, but they look ridiculous in the version I tried to make them look like they were walking. I did a hypnosis session with Bud Hopkins, and he took me to that night. And it's funny because very little new emerged. And what emerged was something that I remember actually thinking at the time, but I didn't have almost like I didn't have permission to say it out loud. So here's what the sense was that I saw these beings. They were kind of walking towards the house. The driveway was a little off to the side, so they were kind of coming from the lawn onto the driveway, and they would have walked kind of around the corner of the house, and the bedroom was right on the corner. So, and they were close. It wasn't like they were some misty thing way, way off in the distance. They were they were close. Like I could open the window and talk to them without raising my voice. And so whatever, maybe 15 feet at the most away from the window. Mm-hmm. And so the feeling I had and that I could articulate under hypnosis was that, you know how like if you were a little kid and he had aunts and uncles that came every year at Thanksgiving. And you
Mm.
only saw them at Thanksgiving, and they came every year at Thanksgiving. So you're a little kid and you see them walking up the driveway one Thanksgiving, and then a whole year goes by, and then you just happen to be at the window and you see them walking towards the house for the next thing, and you think, oh, there they are again. This is just like just like the last time they came up the driveway. It was so, it was like, oh, it's them. It's them. It's them again. They're back. They are familiar. And I will cautiously say they feel like family.
Yeah, there that is. I get it all the time.
Yeah.
Um, I've been working with Susie Hansen in New
Mm-hmm.
Zealand. This goes back so far, and you're talking about, you know, the memory. And so I had the memory in San Francisco. I was 6 years old. I don't know if you saw my film or not, but it was one of those things I just never forgot. Waking up, seeing a light, blue light in the window, being a little unnerved by it, sneaking over onto the windowsill, looking over the edge of the sill, and then the light finds me, and I run and I hide under my desk, and then they come in. The light gets in my room, and I see a shadow of one of them. And but that's under hypnosis. That's as far as I got. Nothing happened beyond that point. Later on, working with Yvonne, we got lots of other stuff, but not from that one. Um, it's like I was just shut down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then in that bedroom had that eerie silence to it,
Oh, that's what woke me up. I felt.
and in an eerie clarity. I don't know how else to
Mm-hmm.
say that. It felt like visually things were too crisp, like more
Hyper
real than
reality,
real. Yeah, exactly,
very
exactly.
hyper reality. Yeah. And you talk about doing a drawing of it, and then you're going to remember it as the drawing. I did a whole film about it that Whitley worked with me on, and
Mm-hmm.
so did Yvonne. That was a film about, it was an actual film, not a documentary, about my experiences, starting with that. So, but despite that, I can still remember what it was like. I still have that same visual memory of waking up and feeling breathless in the room, dead silent, and those little beams of light coming through the window.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
I oh, go
did
on.
did you get anything else with Bud, or you pretty much that was it?
That's all I got from that. So I have nothing else there for that one.
That's interesting.
Nothing meaningful emerged. And I was pretty tense when I was working with Bud. Like I was really early on, I was not at peace. And he only attempted hypnosis once. And I
Right.
had some great results working with Yvonne. And
Hmm.
I've done, this is funny. There was early on, I was wrapped up tight. Wow, was I not at peace with this stuff. And so I had like uh, Leo, Leo Sprinkle attempted to hypnotize me.
Hmm.
I was on a mission, man. I was reaching out to everyone, and I was
Yeah, I know the mission.
and I so and Barbara Lamb tried to hypnotize me, and
Oh,
I couldn't
yeah,
get
yeah.
much new out of that. And but Mary Rodwell, I had great
Oh,
results with
yeah.
Mary, and I had great results with Yvonne, and I'm skeptical to treat what emerged as literal truth, but I certainly
That's very
it's
healthy.
yeah. So I try to say that all the time because people say like how there's a lot of people who are have very strong opinions about hypnosis. They'll just say, oh, like, and here's what I can say is Yvonne's a therapist first
Hmm.
and a UFO or like a researcher second.
Right.
So she's not trying to profit off, like people say, well, these people are trying to write books and stuff like that. I'll also say that Bud, like I've had a history of clinical depression, and so I know like like I know what a thoughtful person is, and I know what a
Hmm.
therapist is, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And Bud would have been a beautiful therapist. Like he was very thoughtful and had very what I felt was very high levels of integrity around the way he performed his role
Plus, he
as a
had this
researcher.
charisma. He had this
He,
charisma. He just made you
yeah,
feel comfortable. The time I spent with him, I just felt like I could hang out with this guy all night.
yeah, beautiful conversationalist. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and oddly he had a picture of owls thumbtacked on his kitchen, like those owls, like right there in this kitchen. And they were the barn owls that do actually have the spooky similarity to the gray aliens. So
Yeah, they do. And so all this time you've been focused on this sort of journey, research, experiencers that are that in the owls. Um, and all this time, have you come to any conclusions of any kind, no matter how
I wish I
minor
could
they
say, I
may
wish I,
be? Yeah,
so,
just
so,
some
I could,
ideas.
I did the first book. Richard Dolan did I feel like I'm name dropping a bunch here, but
Well,
so
that's
forgive me,
okay.
but
We all know this a lot of the same
yeah,
people.
there's
So
these characters. There's a very, there's a short list of players on the stage here. It feels like sometimes, and
yeah,
so Richard Dolan did published the book initially, and then gave me the rights back after a couple of years, and he's doing other stuff. But for a while, he was very much wrapped up in publishing UFO books, and so he did my first two books. The first book was called The Messengers, and the second book was called Stories from the Messengers. And that was just essentially stories that I wanted to put in the first one, but the book was already too fat. So I put a second book out that was just a collection of what reads like a collection of short stories. And then when I did the first book, I remember he called me up. He's like, Mike, I'm reading your book. Like, I'm looking forward. Like, I want to get to the part where you say, I want to get to the part where you like where you answer the question, why owls? What do the owls mean? What's up with the owls? And I was like, oh, Rich, I'm going to disappoint you because I can't answer that. So, and then, and he was like, oh, and then when I did the second book, he was like, Mike, I'm not letting you off the hook. I am not going to let you off the hook. You have to answer why owls. And I think I could read it out of a book if you want me to. I wrote
sure.
a couple short little sentences
Yeah,
just on my bookshelf behind me. Just give me 1 second.
we still have some time left.
I've done this before where I find it's actually easier to to read what I wrote because I had to be really thoughtful because it's a tough question to answer. So in the introduction of the book, this is the book here. It's from 2015,
Right.
2017, excuse me. Stories from the Messengers. It's right in the introduction. Whitley wrote the foreword to this one. Forgive me, I'm doing the name dropping thing.
That's all right. He hosted my film and a lot of other stuff. He's on the show all the time too.
Yeah. He was
So,
so helpful for me when I was struggling early on.
yeah, he
Okay.
is.
So here's a short little thing. It'll just take me a minute or two to read it. It's just 3 or 4 paragraphs.
Okay.
And why owls? On a purely intellectual level, I don't know, yet my gut feeling gives me a glimpse into some possible answers. Here are 4 ideas on what owls might mean, each of which are followed up with another question. Number 1, owls are alarm clocks. The simplest answer would be that owls are here to wake us up. But wake us up to what? Number 2, owls are an archetype. They are a symbol, an image stored deep within humanity's genetic memory bank. It's as if there are hidden meanings locked away within our grand shared consciousness, and the owl is a key. We think in symbols, and the owl is touching us on that level. And this deeper knowing goes back to the dawn of man. But what is this hidden archetypal meaning? Number 3, owls are here to announce initiation. An initiation is a ritual, like a young Catholic receiving the Eucharist during their first Holy Communion. Owls often seem to show up just before the arrival of a UFO, as if to announce an impending ritual. Religious scholars would argue that the initiation rites are metaphoric of a profound change within the initiate, but the true believer wouldn't see the initiation as a metaphor. The change would be entirely real. But an initiation into what?
Hmm.
Number 4, owls are a totem of the transformational experience. Seeing a UFO can transform someone. I've spoken to a lot of people who have seen strange craft in the sky, and in that moment, their entire definition of reality is altered. I've also spoken to people who have had owl sightings at such highly charged moments that it transformed their lives. But a transformation into what? So I have 4 ideas. uh, and then at the end I ask a question, what, like, what does that really mean? Because I have to be open-ended because I don't have a true answer to what owls might mean.
Yeah, it's something as you were reading that. I remember the night I'm on the phone with Whitley Strieber in the backyard, and I've talked about this before, but in my film, but something is there, which he named, by the way. Um, I didn't like the ending. I didn't feel I really had an ending, and we'd spent a lot of money, a lot of time making this film, and I was in the backyard on the phone with him, and I was whining and complaining about that, and I looked over, and the first thing I thought I was seeing was an owl, because when they fly over at night, um, we're not like in the middle of a city here, where
Mm-hmm.
it's more of a urban area, and but there's enough light coming from the homes and the street lights that you can see it cast up on them. So you, even though it's really dark, you can still see them. They kind of glow,
Mm-hmm.
especially the great horned owls because they're good size. I thought that's what I was seeing, but it was kind of wavering, like it was like it had a heat wave around it. And then as it got closer, it became this enormous triangle that flew over very slowly. And I was exasperated because I'm on the phone with Whitley and I'm like, "Hey, Whitley, you're just not going to believe what I'm saying." Well, my God, it's just, I got to just keep, I got to have this moment. I got to watch it. Uh, I didn't put the phone on it to videotape it or anything. It didn't even occur to me. I just wanted to keep describing what I was seeing to Whitley, and eventually went over over the trees and into the horizon, and I couldn't see it anymore. And that became the ending of the film. But when you were reading that, it sort of triggered me back to thinking I was seeing an owl, and it
Mm-hmm.
transformed into this
Mm-hmm.
triangular craft, and it was totally quiet, and it had tiny little bright like star twinkly lights at each corner, no orange reddish light in the middle. It was
Mm-hmm.
very dark, but I could see it very clearly, and it was I'll never forget it as long as I live. And I've seen plenty of UFOs, but that one was really a hallmark. But it started with my seeing an owl.
Yeah. Yeah. Very common. Very common. There's a whole chapter in my book, The Messengers, where I think it's called like owls get confused for UFOs, where like people mix them up. Like
Huh.
they get mixed up in their mind and they get mixed up in their sighting and they think they're seeing an owl and they see a UFO or it's a very odd little thing where there's a distortion. I was going to do a podcast. This is very common for me when I do a podcast is the podcast host will say, "You're never going to believe what happened to me last night." And I hear it so often that
You're never
I
going to
can't
believe.
act bored. You're never going to believe it. I'm like, okay. And I know, and they said, I saw an owl last night. I saw a close up of this owl. I saw an owl last night. And I've never seen an owl and it was there last night. Or I woke up this morning, we're going to do the podcast at 9 a.m. And when I woke up this morning, there was an owl hooting out my window. It's never happened to me before, but it happened this morning just before I talked to you. And I'm like, oh, I get that all the time. I don't want to act callous, but I get that all the time, like
Yeah,
so often. And,
I had I had one on the roof the other night. I mean, he was on the roof, and he was loud.
um, one podcast host, his name is Juan. He has a podcast called Juan on Juan, which is a great name for
Hmm.
a podcast. And so he was going to be interviewing me the next day. So that night he's out with his wife and his little son, and his son is tiny, like 5 years old. And he's out in the backyard and it's dark, and he says, I'm interviewing Mike tomorrow. Maybe I'll see an owl. And right as he has this thought, his son goes, Dad, look. And an orange orb passes through the backyard.
Huh.
So he was thinking, oh, maybe I'll see an owl, and then he sees an orange orb. That's a UFO. It's an unidentified flying object,
Right.
and so that these kinds of stories are so consistent. This happened to me the other night. I did an interview with a woman when I had my first incarnation of the blog. This is going back over a decade, and her pen name is Lucretia Hart, and she runs a wonderful uh, blog called At Spiral's End. And I think it might just be called Spiral's End, and where she talks about her contact experiences. About 5 years ago, I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, found myself like I moved out of one place, but I didn't have a place to move into yet. So I moved in here to this house and then Lucretia Hart is my roommate. She's downstairs right now. And so we have chickens in the yard and we
I
take
love
turns.
chickens.
Yeah, pardon?
I love chickens.
I love chickens too. I don't like the roosters. I like the chickens. I like the hens.
Yeah,
The roosters are kind of a pain.
they're very soothing animals.
Yeah. So we have a one or the other. Either as the sun sets, either she'll go out and put the chickens away, or I'll go out and put the chickens away. So I walked out and I got to them about 1 minute before she did. So I put them away and closed up the pen and was coming out and closing the gate. And she looked at me and said, "So I'm walking towards the porch. She's on the porch. There's a driveway. We're out in the woods. This is the Northwest. So there's big giant trees all around the yard and stuff like that. So I'm walking towards her. The chicken pen is there in the yard. And there's the driveways right there. She's on the porch. So she's just a step or two above me in height. And it's twilight. And I'm walking towards her. And she says, I said something like, "Oh, I got the chickens. I beat you to them. I got the chickens tonight. So you don't have to worry about it." And she said, "I was taken last night." And just as she said that, simultaneously, an owl flew right behind me, almost just maybe 10 feet, 10, 15 feet behind me, and passed directly, so like it passed behind me. So it's like this is at the core of my research. Like she says, I was taken last night. And it happened. And as those words were coming out of her mouth, an owl passed through the yard. I actually sat down and talked with her about it. She had no memories of it, but she has a and I trust her implicitly.
Mm-hmm.
She says there's a vibration that shows up in the morning or when I wake that I recognize just having been through a lifetime of this. And she worked closely with Bud for years. And she's been blogging about her own experiences, and that blog at Spiral's End I would recommend to anyone. It's amazing.
Okay, we'll find it and put up a link. Yeah, I always know the next morning whether I remember anything or not. I just my body tells me, my mind tells me that last night something went on, something happened. So,
And I think
so
for some reason I don't have this, I don't have the wealth of experiences that some people have, but I have enough to say. I mean, all it takes is one, and
yeah,
but I have it seems to manifest in my life as powerful synchronicities. And I have events where like other things happen and I feel like, wow, something happened, like that event where I sat up and saw them out the window, or missing time events and things like that. So, but I never have that feeling of waking up in the morning. I guess I've had a few occasions of that, but
yeah.
it's fleeting for me.
It can be really hard because you have a whole day to get through and a lot of things planned, and you just feel kind of run down, and
Yeah.
sometimes you find peculiar marks, and I don't mean just a bruise that you got from bumping your arm, but things that are very deliberate looking and very symmetrical and that kind of thing, and I still get them, although I don't have a lot of memory of um, physically being taken, like coming into the house, although I have been in the bathroom at 3 in the morning, and out of my peripheral vision, I see the shadow, the big head and a little body walk by, backlit by the light coming from the living room,
Mm-hmm.
which gives you this zing, because you're wide awake. And I've seen them in the kitchen, but overall, most of it, like you're saying, synchronicities. There's that definitely, and but there's something going on at night and something happening in the dream time that is directly connected with them. And um, I don't know much. Are you familiar with Susie Hansen?
Sure. Oh yeah, I've met her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I read
Sure.
her book
Yeah.
when
That
it
that
came
book
out.
triggered the hell out of me because you were talking about um, you attribute something to your imagination, and especially when you're only 6, 7 years old, you think, oh well, you know, when you reach 12, 11, 12, 13, 14, you get to be a teenager, you look back on those memories, they're very powerful and they're very there still. But you say, I just had a wild imagination. Come forward all these years, I'm sitting there and I've got her book and I hit a spot and I have to stop and I start crying and I'm just like reacting to it on this emotional level that I won't say I can't explain it. I can't explain it. And that's what was so moving emotionally about it, is that she's talking about the things I didn't share in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on a project right now with her, and we're both doing a film with her, and not an interview, but an actual film about chapter 34 of the book. So it should be really, really, really interesting. Like you, I'm submerged in this stuff 24/7, and if it wasn't for the fact I had hobbies like radio controlled modeling and other things that I do at my studio, I think I'd go crazy. But you got to have other things in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even my filmmaking is all wrapped around this now, because I have the ability to make films on the subject and get information out there like I never could before. Which brings me to you, and that is what you're up to now, because we've come to our hour, and I'm very curious to see what you're working on now. And you're obviously working on this all the time, this subject matter.
Well, sometimes, so a few things. I've got I'm my archives, which
Hmm.
are all digital. I kind of started doing my research after the advent of email, and so my archives are I'm donating them to Rice University in
Oh,
Texas. So they'll be alongside Whitley's and Jacques Vallée's, and so that feels powerful to me. And so, and I just there's like
it's great
just
news.
it. You know what? I just not every story is super powerful, but the majority of them, wow, is it's just there's such a consistency. And so what I've been doing is I go through a lot of correspondence with people because and I wish I could do more. People reach out to me and I just simply cannot get back to everyone.
I
And
understand. I
and the
understand.
people I do get back to, I do have a correspondence with, and some of those correspondence are long and back and forth. So a lot of the my archives are a back and forth correspondence with people. So and then I did a novel a few 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I
you
published a
you you
novel,
mentioned that. Yeah.
and so the theme of the novel was, and I did this as kind of like I did this on purpose, where I it's a book about UFO abduction, but I never put the word abduction into the story.
Thank you.
I never put the word
I
UFO into
just
the story.
I don't like either one of those
Well,
words.
I mean, we're stuck with it. It's like Kleenex or something
I
like
know,
that. Where
I
it's like
know.
it's the
But
catchphrase
abduction
we all know.
is so, the abduction sounds so negative. It's so bad, you know.
But
So
it is but so I never use the word UFO in it. You know what I wanted to do is I wanted someone to pick up the book and be entertained by the book, and it's got an eerie mood to it, and it's got like a kind of otherworldly feel to it. But I don't want anyone to know that it was actually about UFOs. There's a couple little things that kind of point to it, but wow, it is fleeting and indirect, and the story is here I'll just this is it's a the title of the book is The Unseen, and and it's been selling pretty well, but more than anything, it's been the reviews on Amazon are great. Like I tried to write a book with a myth, kind of like an archetypal ancient myth at the below the waterline, and above the waterline, kind of like an entertaining and emotional thriller. And so that one really, really put me through the ringer. Like, wow, I really tried to fill it with as much emotion as I possibly could, and then it has kind of the movies in the 1970s. Like this is I
hmm
say this, I wanted this movie to end like a movie from the 1970s, and I think in the 1970s you had permission to like have a drama and then have it end with this open-ended kind of like what's going to happen next, like almost leave the in a movie theater it would be to leave the viewer off kilter a little bit, but I wanted the reader to be just off kilter a little bit. I've and and there's been a lot of people reaching out to me, Mike, you got to write a part two. So I've been working on part two, and the problem with that is like I like the mood of book one. I wanted to make sure to capture the mood in book two, and so it's taken me. And so I've got a good chunks of that written. And at the same time, I'm working on a book again. I want to call it Owls and Death. And I think I talked about this the last time we talked, where of all the subjects, like owls and UFOs are at the top of the list. I'm asking for those stories, but what I'm getting is owls and death stories, and that's actually the ancient folklore around owls.
Yeah, it is.
And so I'm getting so many beautiful stories around owls and death, where they're where an owl will show up, a real owl, not like a screen memory or something. A real owl will show up at the time of someone's passing, and these stories are so rich and so beautiful. But I want to do a thinner book. There's a chapter in the first book which is called Owls and Death. I just want to flesh that chapter out into a shorter format book. This book is, and The Messengers is almost 400 pages, so I'm thinking about a 150-page book, and I'm organizing that. But I've been kind of stalled out in the last. I feel bad. I've been a little bit stalled out trying to actually get the work done. I feel like I've got the outlines done. I've got all the notes written there, and I just haven't been able to take that next step and really sit down and start writing.
Well, you have a lot of other stuff going on, and that always makes it hard. Because we just shot a film called The UFO, original title, huh? But when you see the film, you'll know why. And it's a short film. It's I have some people working on it with me, and they're going to put it in this big film festival. And so I have that. We do one of these shows every week. We do a film like the one I did with Debbie Cobble, where she tells her story to camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought everything to life using my CGI
Mm-hmm.
visual effects that I've done for years. I got my writings from Substack, and so you have all these things going on, and you always have another project that you really keep trying to get to, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't. But you eventually will. Trust me, because I've always felt guilty, and it felt like I'll never get it finished. But when I break my time up in the little bits, which I kind of hate doing for each thing, I do end up getting it done, and the quality is still there. So I think you'll find that works pretty well for you. Are you going to be at Contact in the Desert this year?
Nope. No.
Nope. No. Okay.
Yeah, I would love to go, but I just
Have you
can't.
ever been?
Never been.
Yeah, me neither. Me
Are you
neither.
going to be there?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I'm
yeah.
just leaving it at that. Yeah. Yeah. But I know Whitley's going to be down there, and Yvonne, and they're all down there, and I'm sure it'd be fun, but just from the standpoint of just seeing your friends and colleagues that you've been working with all these years. So that would be great. Mike, is there
I
anything?
spoke at Rice University. Oh, go on.
Oh, you did? Oh, I want to hear about Rice University.
I spoke there. I was.
Excuse me.
I've talked to Jeff Kripal, who runs the archives there. He
Hmm.
runs an annual conference called the Archives of the Impossible, and this year the theme was, I can't remember the actual title, but it was about UFOs, and it had a lot of heavy hitters there. A lot of people from the sort of the the top tier of the disclosure thing, including
Sure.
Tim Gallaudet, if he's an admiral in the Navy, and
Hmm. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
so there was it's a very academic conference, and I'm a college dropout and someone who draws cartoons, and
So
I
am
did.
I.
Yeah, so I was like, kind of felt like I was way out of my league when I was there, but they gave me 20 minutes to talk, and it was about the experiencer side of things, and
Wow.
I worked so hard on this talk, and I knew, and it's like it is 18 minutes and 59 seconds. I milked every second I could out of that 20 minutes, and I was so nervous going into this talk, and
Oh, sure.
and I was, and I didn't expect the audience, all the speakers before me were very, they had their PowerPoints with the lists and they were reading directly from a script, and they were basically reading an essay, and um and it great material, but it lacked a certain first person passion. Like, so I was up there basically saying, this is what happened to me. This is my story. This is my journey. And the people in the audience really responded in a way
Yeah, I
that
bet
left
they
me.
did.
And is so the way it was full house. So people went back and they just took the same exact seat every time they had a talk. So Whitley was in the audience when I was giving the talk, and Whitley texted me right after, like, thank you, that was a great talk. And then there was someone sitting behind Whitley, and this really meant a lot to me. But he said, Whitley was sitting right in front of me, and a lot of the talks are kind of they're not super exciting. The information's good, but and he
Nuts
said,
and
Whitley,
bolts.
yeah, real nuts and
Yeah.
bolts, and some of it is about more consciousness thing, but it's through the lens of
Hmm.
research and such.
Hmm.
And he said, Whitley kind of would watch the things, and I could kind of tell by his body language. And when you were talking, he's like basically said, when I was up on stage, Whitley was kind of like, he could tell he was like excited. You could see he was like really resonating strongly with that. And I knew he was going to be in the audience, and so I did actually talk about a little bit about the book Communion
Hmm.
in my talk, and I put a link to that talk. It was videotaped, so I can put
Oh,
that.
great. Yeah.
That one, I'm really, like, I really worked hard on that talk, and I tried to squeeze as much as I could, and I wanted to be true to myself. Like, I didn't want to pretend I was an academic and try to like use big words that I might not even know what they mean. But I really tried to make it as passionate and as personal as I could. So that
Genuine.
was a huge, very. I tried to be my truest self.
Genuine's a very
Yeah,
important thing to be.
and so that was it. So 2025 was a really important event for
Wow.
me in my whole life, really, to stand in front of that crowd and give that talk.
Wow, how amazing. I had no idea. I'm really glad to hear that, Mike. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, being genuine, you don't you don't get a lot of that from the community overall, I find. But there are those like yourself.
Deb Koppel.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that did shoot from the hip. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
this channel's all about. We're really the only channel uh, who's sort of evolved this community of people that were afraid to speak to anyone in media about what they're experiencing at all. But they've been watching us over time, and they're bravely coming forward and saying, I feel safe with you. You're not trying to exploit us. You're just, no,
Mm-hmm.
we're just allowing you to have a voice and talk about these stories and the things that happen to you in a way that mainstream media will never do, because they will edit you to death and they'll cut down the stuff, and then they'll have someone come on afterwards and say it was all sleep paralysis. So
Or
being
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, or being genuine, and we are, and you are, um, really gets people excited, and it's nice to see.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's a flaw, I think, in like the modern. Oh, I guess a cable TV isn't even a word anymore, but like the streaming shows.
Yeah,
Ancient
Netflix.
Aliens is a type of filmmaking that I just don't
Hmm.
like. I
Yeah.
don't like the boom noises when they cut from edit to edit, and
Oh yeah. Well, that's very typical. And then you take the Manhattan Abduction, which was just horrendous. It was a horrendous, horrible film, and made Bud look like some sort of monster. And they're terrible. They don't care. They just, it's all about making the bucks, and getting as many viewers as they can for
creating
ratings.
controversy when the story itself is plenty. The human experience,
Yeah.
that's enough. If you can
Well,
convey the human experience without all the, you know, lying, and yeah, that. So I know um, uh, Peter Robbins quite well, and so that really broke my heart when that whole thing went
yeah,
down.
I know. And I look back at Close Encounters, and that film was just a gem because it's everything that we're talking about. It was about the human experience, interaction with this non-human intelligence, this consciousness, and our consciousness connecting with it. And yet Spielberg today, when interviewed, says, I was young and naive when I made that movie. And that was really sad to hear that.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what this. I wonder if the yeah. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
who
sure, I
knows?
know.
I don't know the core of the story, and Spielberg has done plenty of films that are filled with emotion and human experience
Yeah,
and that personal warmth.
yeah.
And so
We shall
maybe
see.
that we'll see, we'll find out. So that I know everyone around that production has been totally tight-lipped, and they've been playing up that you know that they're not sharing anything about the production and the storyline.
Yeah, and I'm deeply involved in the motion picture industry. I've been worked in it all my life and worked with all the greats and Robert Wise, Gene Roddenberry, all these other people, and I couldn't find a thing out about it at all. I didn't really pry into it that well, although I am going to be talking to someone pretty soon who's very directly involved in it. But I'm not even going to ask them. I kind of don't want to know. I just want to find out what happens when it comes out, hear what people have to say about it. I'm reluctant to see it because if it is a negative picture, a dark picture, or just an alien invasion movie, I'm really bored with that subject.
Oh, it bores me to tears.
It, it
What did you do with Robert Wise? I'm curious. He's been a huge hero of mine.
I worked on Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I did
Ah,
Aliens for that, and Leonard Nimoy's Ears. Um, I already knew Gene Roddenberry at the time, and I was brought on board by Fred Phillips, who was the makeup artist for the original TV show. We were
hmm.
friends, and he called me up one day and said, "You want to come down and work on Star Trek and make Spock's ears?" And I went,
Oh my word.
"Yeah." Well, that was neat.
That
But I did a
sounds
lot. I did a lot of other stuff, Mike. So before we close here, I wanted to ask you: is there anything else you wanted to share or say about this subject to the audience? And although most of our audience is all in sync with us, you and I and everyone else, um, we have a lot of new people coming in that aren't.
yeah. It's so. Number one, we're dealing with a genuine mystery, and that's a phrase I like to use a lot because here's my sense. My strong sense is, and this is after doing a lot of work, and is that there's that wherever we are here in this physical realm, these beings I don't think share the same physical realm that we share.
Absolutely,
I
I will
think
agree with that.
they are I feel like they have the ability to look in at our reality easily.
Hmm.
We have a
Hmm.
very difficult time looking into their reality. We might get a glimpse of it under meditation or but
A near death experience.
a near death experience, a moment of psychic insight. So
Been
yeah,
there.
exactly. We might get a glimpse into their reality, but it's fleeting. We are making a mistake when we anthropomorphize the beings and just say, oh, they're ahead of us evolutionarily, and they're on a more advanced, spaceship than we can presently invent. But they're just a little farther down the road than we are. Whoa, I think that's way too simplistic. We're dealing with something entirely with a richness and a depth. It's much more 2001.
Yes, thank you. My
Yeah,
favorite movie.
yeah.
And that movie was all about that. And the other thing is that there's one thing we definitely share with them for sure, and that is non-local consciousness. Otherwise, we'd never be having these experiences.
And yet even that is difficult for us to wrap our mind around. Yes, I agree
Mhm.
completely. Where we can have a moment of psychic insight,
Mhm.
perhaps we can, like someone may be able to channel information,
Mhm.
some information, powerful, valid information can come through in a dream state. So yeah, the non-local, whatever term you want to use, but we are capable of tapping into that. But it is not. It is not. It's fleeting for us. And then I would tell you that a lot of people would wouldn't be even comfortable with using that term. Like,
Yeah. Oh, they are. I run into it all the time. I'm very comfortable with
yeah,
it, but then again, Mary and I meditate every morning. We have been for years, and we're vegan. We're very much Buddhist, a Buddhist philosophy, um, and so that contributes a lot to it. Mike, what would you say? And this is my last question before we end here. What would you say to people who the people that just discount this whole subject and say, "Oh, that's all garbage science," you're never going to reach them. But there are people who are open and are would I'm trying to find the right words for it. Want to be reached. What would you suggest to them to become more in touch with this subject? I mean, there's a lot of stuff you
Mm-hmm.
can suggest, but I mean, is there anything that you can think of in terms of them applying their own intelligence to the subject matter and learning more about it, or something like that?
So this is something that's been at the forefront of my thoughts for like the last bunch of years,
Hmm.
and what I've and then this is just me. If I'm following my truest path, this is how it feels. Like like I don't care if you believe in the totality of the UFO experience or whatever term you want to use. This contact with a non-ordinary intelligence that seems to be interacting with us.
That's
What I
important.
do care about is that when you talk to the person directly and you really listen, or let's say you hear a story and you really listen to the story, and that's what my work is that if I'm doing anything, I'm sharing stories from other people. My books are just a collection of stories. My fiction book is taken from the stories I've collected, and I wove these real life experiences. Many of them are my own, and I wove them into a fictional story. But my books are just story after story of other people's experiences. Uh, when you hear a story, you can be touched at a really deep level, and you can be moved. I mean, as simple as it sounds, you can, everyone should cry at Bambi. It's a cartoon, but it packs such an emotional punch. And so within these stories, if you really listen, are stories of transformation, are stories of spiritual awakening, are stories of profound spiritual growth, and and oftentimes there's a spark in the story. So don't get bogged down. Is this true? Is this not true? Just listen to the individual's story and just find that sacred spark that's in there. And it's there. It's in all of them. My email inbox is filled with them day after day, stories with that sacred spark in them. So just pay attention to that. And the other stuff, whether it follows or not, the humanity within the stories is all I really care about at this point.
Wow. I would have to agree 100%, Mike. Thanks so much for being on our show again. Obviously, you'll be asked to be back again. I hope we can do that.
Great, anytime. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you, and many thanks. And thanks for all the work that you're doing.
Okay, say hi to Mary for
Oh,
me.
I will.